Hey guys, I'm back with the third video in our unit on consciousness. We're calling it Altered States of Consciousness because we're combining hypnosis and drugs into the same presentation. And basically we're talking about both of these together because they're both self-induced altered states of consciousness. And what I mean by that is that these are both things that you can do to alter your own consciousness. So you have control over these. So let's start with hypnosis. Why is it that people don't want to be hypnotized? That's very interesting to me because basic people have this understanding that hypnosis is some kind of magical thing that someone else has control over you, and it's really not the case at all. What it is a deep state of relaxation where your mind is very focused. You're focused on the other person's voice, and you're very willing to accept the direction and instruction of the other person. So, myths and facts about hypnosis. It cannot force you to do anything against your will. There was this acid study that was conducted, and people under hypnosis were just as likely to put their hand in a bowl of quote-unquote acid as people who were not hypnotized, who were fully awake. So you have to be willing to do it in order for it to work. So hypnosis cannot recall forgotten events. So if you've suffered from amnesia or suffered a traumatic event that your brain forgot later on in life to protect you, hypnosis is not going to call that up. I know Hollywood uses hypnosis a lot to do things like that, but it just doesn't work that way. And finally, hypnosis cannot cure your addictions. It can't cure anything that you're addicted to. Facts. Anyone can experience hypnosis if they're open to it. And the same goes for people who are successful at it. So say that you were successful at hypnosis today. Tomorrow, for some reason, you're just not feeling as open to it. So you're not able to be hypnotized. As long as you're open to it, as long as you're willing, then hypnosis will work on you. It doesn't matter who you are. Hypnosis can be therapeutic. So there's something called a post-hypnotic suggestion. And what basically people undergo hypnosis because they want to work out issues that they have. And one of the ways that this can be done is that the hypnotist can say that after I snap my fingers 3 times, you won't smoke for the rest of the day. And they'll snap their fingers 3 times, the person will wake up, and then for some reason they just don't want a cigarette that day. This is just a post-hypnotic suggestion. This is just suggesting you to have better, healthier habits. And because you're mentally willing to, or you wouldn't have undergone the hypnosis, then you are able to achieve it. So while I say that hypnosis cannot cure any addiction that you have, post-hypnotic suggestion has been very helpful with people who have obesity and people who are addicted to smoking. So people who are obese, it's usually they've got a trigger food or they eat for emotional reasons, and a post-hypnotic suggestion can help them sort of curb that issue. Same goes with smoking too. While you're not going to just all of a sudden get over your addiction to food or your addiction to smoking, the post-hypnotic suggestions can really help curb your issue related to those items for a little bit of time. Finally, hypnosis can help stop pain. This is quite fascinating to me. They've actually had people undergo seriously invasive surgeries without the use of anesthetics. So say they're allergic to anesthesia, how else are we going to undergo the surgery? The people are hypnotized, and they can just basically separate themselves from the surgery and not feel the pain. Women have actually undergone childbirth because they didn't want to be drugged while they were giving birth, and they didn't want their baby to be drugged when it came out. They've actually undergone childbirth using hypnosis to just help stop the pain. So, explaining hypnosis. There are 2 kind of main theories on hypnosis. There's the social phenomenon theory, which says that hypnotized individuals are just being good subjects. They just want to be good at hypnosis. They're not faking it. They're not just playing along. They're actually hypnotized, but they're caught up in the situation. They just want to be good at it, and so they are. Then there's the divided consciousness theory, which is more interesting and more believable to a majority of psychologists. And that means that the hypnotized individual is dissociated, meaning that 2 or more streams of mental activity are operating at the same time. So basically what happens is like a split personality issue. We've got the main individual, and this person's highly susceptible and can be influenced by the hypnotist. And then we have what's known as the hidden observer, the part of you that's not open to hypnotism. They know what's going on, but they're being completely ignored and they're in the background. So this kind of makes sense with the whole pain thing, because while the hypnotized person is awake and they're getting the surgery done, the part of them that's feeling the pain is kind of shut off from the world and not able to talk to the rest of the individual and say, hey, you're in pain. So the divided consciousness theory is far more believed and accepted in psychology. All right, let's move on to drugs. You guys know a lot about drugs because you've taken health classes and you've grown up in a society where we're incredibly consciously aware of drugs. So I'm not going to take too much time to do this, but we do need to see how drugs are related to psychology. So what our brain is protected by a layer of capillaries known as the blood-brain barrier. Drugs that are small enough to pass through are called psychoactive drugs, and they're called that because they actually alter your psychological state, or they alter your perception of reality. So, drugs are either agonists, which stimulate the normal response for that neurotransmitter. So, say you are low on, serotonin, then the drug will actually help your body produce more serotonin. Antagonists, those block. So, those actually block the normal response for that neurotransmitter. So, say you just got your wisdom teeth out, like codeine and all sorts of other painkillers actually stop the normal response for that transmitter, which is to signal pain in the brain. And then finally, there's the reuptake inhibitors. These prevent your neurotransmitters from being reabsorbed into the nerve. And I'll show you a visual of that later, and it'll make more sense. So, if a drug is used often, a tolerance is created for the drug. So, by the way, every time I bold a word like this in the middle of a sentence, count on it being a vocab word from your textbook. Thus, you need more of the drug to feel the exact same effect that you felt initially when you started using the drug. So, and then if you stop using the drug, you can develop withdrawal symptoms. And these withdrawal symptoms can be everything from actual physical pain to depression, anxiety. You can break out in rashes and hives, all sorts of things. Here are two people that are on meth. This woman, it took just 2.5 years for this to happen, and these are the symptoms of meth. This is how it manifests on the body. All right, let's talk about the different types of drugs. First, we have stimulants. These speed up your body's processes. So a common one that I'm sure each and every one of you have every day is coffee, right? Caffeine. Caffeine is a stimulant. But more powerful ones like cocaine give people the feeling of invincibility, like they're untouchable, they can do anything, they're unstoppable. Cocaine is also a dopamine reuptake inhibitor. So remember I was saying I was going to talk about reuptake inhibitors? Well, here it is. Okay, so remember we had that whole animation about the nerve and everything, and how it travels, the electrical response travels down the axon, and then the neurotransmitters are released into the synaptic cleft, and then the synapse, accepts, the receptor sites accept on the other side. Well, what happens with a reuptake inhibitor is that every time those are released, there are a few that don't actually make it to the next nerve, right? There isn't enough room for everybody. So they get reabsorbed by the presynaptic nerve, so by the nerve before, and then used at a later date. Well, what a reuptake inhibitor does is it actually blocks the reabsorption center so that those guys can't get reabsorbed. And so basically all you're doing is you're resending that every millisecond. You're resending the same signal. So that's how it speeds up your body's processes. Okay, depressants. These actually do the opposite. They slow down the body processes. Alcohol is a depressant. It's involved in 60% of all crimes in the United States, and it's also involved in over 70% of sexually related crimes. It's a hugely overabused substance in our society. Anxiolytics are barbiturates and tranquilizers. Those are also some other depressants. All right, hallucinogens. These are psychedelics. These cause, obviously, hallucinations. They cause changes in perceptions of reality. We've got LSD, peyote, psilocybin mushrooms, commonly referred to as just mushrooms, and marijuana. So let's take a look at some of these. We've got LSD. Yes, it usually comes in a fun-looking tablet like that, but trust me, it's not fun. Not that I know personally, but it's not fun. Then we have peyote. This is commonly used in Native American tribes for their rituals. Then we have mushrooms. and marijuana. All right, opiates. These have depressive and hallucinogenic qualities. And they're also an agonist for endorphins. Remember, so an agonist actually just stimulates the normal function of something. So it increases your endorphins. They're derived from the poppy plant, and they are morphine, heroin, methadone, codeine. So remember, codeine is something we use for pain and stuff like that. All of these drugs cross the placental barrier. They're called teratogens. Cocaine and alcohol are also teratogens. So what that means is that it crosses this barrier. If you're pregnant, it'll cross the placental barrier and get into the uterus with the baby. The baby will absorb it. So after birth, the baby can suffer from withdrawal. It can also be deformed in some way, suffer from mental illnesses and diseases. This is a very bad thing. So basically, the lesson of today's story is don't do drugs.